All right, so today I'm going to be painting an 8 by 8 inch alla prima oil painting of a rose. So I had a request on Patreon to do a close-up of a rose or a flower, and I haven't done flowers in a long time, at least close-ups of flowers. About 10 years ago, I was inspired to give it a go. There's a painter, Carol Marine, which I'm sure many of you know of, and she did a bunch of close-up paintings of roses, and so I thought I would give it a try. So I did a few of those. Like I said, it was about 10 years ago, and I took a bunch of photographs and sort of experimented with different compositions. So as usual, I have those photographs, and I'm going to be working from one today. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm starting off by toning the panel using some Hansa yellow light, and I've thinned it with odorless mineral spirits. Just kind of did a wash, and then I wiped off as much as possible. So you can see it's just a light tint of yellow on there. Typically I will tone the panel using burnt sienna, but this time I wanted to use yellow just as an experiment because there's a lot of yellow in this flower. Wanted to make sure that I got a good feeling of illumination, and so I figured I would experiment with the yellow. Just mapping it out using burnt sienna to draw, and now coming in with my darks, which obviously it's the green surrounding the flower. And so I'm just coming in, and filling in those negative shapes. And now I want to establish a light, the light portion of this flower, because I'm going to key the dark areas to the lights. And one thing I noticed, I was going back and forth with the shadow areas because I wanted to keep the flower kind of high key. I didn't want a lot of heavy dark shadows because the petals are translucent. So if I were to put some heavy darks in there, it just wouldn't have that delicate feel that a flower has. So that was a big challenge. I kept going back and forth with those darks. They have to be dark enough to create a feeling of light, and yet I don't want it to be so dark that it just feels heavy. So here you can see there I'm kind of like darkening up the petal down below, and I'm just looking for delicate shifts in color, and I'm not even trying to be 100% accurate to the color. Like I said, I'm usually going for a feeling of light, and that's the most important thing. So I started playing the yellow against the violet. Even when I wasn't really seeing a lot of violet in the shadows, I just thought, all right, I'm going to use ultramarine and some dioxazine purple to, so that there's that complement, the complements working together to create a feeling of illumination. This was, there's some things that are really challenging about flowers, and then some things that are sort of forgiving. One thing that's forgiving about the flowers is that it is kind of an abstract painting. It reminded me of painting waves in that, nobody's going to know if it's exactly correct. But on the other hand, I started noticing that there were things that I wanted to change just because it just seemed like it was awkward. So I was kind of going back and forth, making these little changes. But again, the main thing is I'm just trying to focus on creating that feeling of light, as usual. I can see right now even that some of those dark portions are a little bit too dark. That yellow glow between the petals, that creates so much, that really helps so much as far as creating that feeling of illumination. As the painting progressed, I really needed to focus on the edges. Sometimes the petals had a sharp edge or a hard edge, and sometimes they kind of they were starting to curl, so they had a soft edge. So I spent some time trying to figure that out. Overall, this is a good exercise. You've really got to concentrate. It's challenging. Okay, so I spent another half hour or so working on this after the time lapse, and mostly what I was doing was looking for some delicate shifts in color. I thought I saw some blue-green or something that looked like a phthalo, so I added those in there, little pops of that phthalo. I'm also just checking my edges, as I was talking about, just trying to make sure that I had a nice mix of soft and hard edges. And then also this area here, which actually on camera still reads as too light. I darkened this area right here because I wanted the center of the flower to kind of glow. So I cooled this off and darkened it because even in the photographs, this was like really light colored there. So I kind of darkened that to make sure that, like I said, I had this nice warm glow in the center of the flower. I used thin paint for the background and tried to leave some of the brush strokes and some of the panel actually showing through the paint. I didn't want it to be too uniform. You know, that's a tendency we have as humans to just sort of seek order. I did make a few little changes in there, but you know, the whole point of a flower is it is kind of this unpredictable, random pattern of shapes, and I wanted to make sure that I, you know, stuck with that and did not get too orderly about it. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the yellow that I used to tone the panel. I used a Hansa yellow light, which is an inexpensive aerolide yellow. It's transparent. It's good. It's got good saturation, actually. It's something you might want to experiment with. It's good to have a transparent yellow in your paint box. Sometimes you don't want to have an opaque yellow, like for example, if you're toning a panel, you wouldn't want to use a cadmium yellow because it is opaque. So this was really nice. I think that toning with yellow did increase the feeling of luminosity in the finished painting. So I'm going to experiment more with that. I did have to add a little bit of burnt sienna to the yellow because the Hansa yellow light is kind of a cool yellow, almost leaning towards green. So when I first put it on, it wasn't quite working. The other thing I want to mention is the brush I used. I had a brand new Princeton 6300 number 8 bright synthetic brush. Brand new. In fact, I just got a bunch of art supplies and I'm going to post an unboxing later. So I'm editing that now, like unboxing all my art supplies. So that's coming up maybe even later today. But anyway, and then I also mixed up a new batch of medium, which is a mixture of 1 part odorless mineral spirits, 1 part standard oil, 2 parts linseed oil. And that allows me to get some nice blended edges, so I could really work the edges well, get a nice blend so that you could create a nice soft edge. Hope you enjoyed this demo. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As usual, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. It is the Patreon support that allows me to keep making these videos. I got a bunch of little mini videos on Patreon, just sharing thoughts and like quick ideas or tips or whatever. So if you want to check that out, there is a link in the description. Other than that, stay healthy, stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video.